It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I want to play a game.
Hello everybody, Yussef here from Sounds from the Grave, and today we're going to be talking about the newest horror film out in theaters, A Quiet Place Part 2. But before we start the video, I would like to ask you to please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and also check out our podcast. We are on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube. We do release episodes every Monday at 12, and we do discuss everything horror related, whether that's movies, TV shows, and even local haunts in our area. So please, check us out. Now, without further ado, let's get to the review. A Quiet Place Part 2 is, of course, a sequel to A Quiet Place, and it does take place immediately after the events of the first film. That being said, if you have not seen the first film, you definitely need to see it. I highly recommend that you do see it. It does help make the story a little bit more rich, and it also does not ruin the plot of the second for you, because there are certain things that happen in the first film that do affect the second film. So I would recommend that you do that first. The story follows the Abbott family as they pick up the pieces in the aftermath of the events of the first film, and they have to step into a larger world that's just been ravaged by these creatures that hunt exclusively by sound. So right off the bat, I am going to say this. When this movie got announced, I didn't really have the highest expectations for it. I mean, I was a big fan of the first film. I really liked how that movie ended. I liked how it was kind of a clear, concise ending. And I was not really sure as to how they were going to follow it up in a sequel. But boy, was I proven wrong. I absolutely loved this movie. It had a lot of tense and suspenseful moments. It opened the world up and really showed more locations and more variety than the single or maybe two locations that had been shown in the first film. And it had some amazing acting by its leads. All in all, it told a clear and concise story with interesting turns and really creative writing. Now, there were quite a few issues in the writing itself, but they weren't enough to really pull me out of the film and break that immersion that I had throughout the entire showing. One of the most surprising things in this film was actually its dialogue. The first film had very little dialogue, and when it did have that, it felt earned, like there was a reason for it to be there. It's very different in this film. The dialogue is very much a necessity in terms of what the characters have to do in order to communicate. Like, they have to talk, especially now that there are more variables in play. But of course, that type of communication, that type of talking raises the stakes, and it really just ratchets up the tension in certain moments. Don't get me wrong, there aren't any sweeping big speeches or anything like that. It's mostly because this movie doesn't need anything like that. I mean, these characters are focused on surviving, and they never talked unless they absolutely had to. If I could use a point of comparison to explain the tense moments in the film, I would definitely use the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. It's the way that the characters moved around the environment and they used the things in their environment was very reminiscent of that scene, while also adding its own identity and adding its own flavor to better match what was going on in the film and the overall theme of the film. There's something about knowing where the danger is but not having the resources to fight it that is just terrifying to me, and this movie had that in spades. One of the strongest aspects of this film were also its performances. Emily Blunt was astounding as this caring mother that would do absolutely anything to protect her children. And outside of the big sequences, she had these really beautiful, tender moments with all of her children, especially her eldest son, which I believe was kind of downplayed in the first film, and it really had a lot more breathing room in this one, because there were certain scenes where it was just them interacting with each other, and it was very sweet, it was very nurturing, but also very tense. Cillian Murphy was also terrific in this film as this tortured man that's seen everything he loves pulled away from him, and it's left him jaded, it's left him empty, and you can just see the sadness and just the despair in his eyes and his face. Like, I thought Cillian Murphy was already a good actor, but like this kind of tops the cake for me, because like I had never seen such a vulnerable and strong performance from him before. The biggest surprise of the movie in terms of its performances was definitely Millicent Simmons. Her character was really well written, and it had a lot more time focused on her, which I felt like we also hadn't had enough of in the first film. Like, there are extended sequences where it's just her, and it was so interesting, especially when it came to the sound design, because in the film and also in real life, this actress is deaf, and they played around with that quite a bit in the film, and I think they really did a pretty good job of showcasing how she perceived the world, and also how dangerous it was for her in this world, especially when you can't hear anything. Another one of the great aspects of this film when it came to Millicent Simmons' acting was her relationship with Cillian Murphy's character. Their relationship was very realistic and oftentimes heart-wrenching. In terms of expanding the universe, this film really opened up the door and showcased what other things this world contains, both good and bad. And it was really interesting to see how this whole situation had affected different people. There was one particular scene that I don't want to get into too much detail for fear of spoiling anything, but let's just say it goes into a really dark and unexpected place, and it really served to add so much tension to the film, and really also fleshed out this world in a very believable and convincing way. Now, there was one thing in the movie that I didn't particularly like, and it relates to a certain character, and I can't really specify which character, I can't specify what happens without spoiling anything, so all I can say is this. This character makes a pretty dumb decision, and it was a decision that could have been easily avoided. I feel like it was really just there as a plot point to add more tension to the film. But I mean, outside of that, the writing was tight, it was solid, and it really did not break my immersion and the experience of watching this film, because I was honestly glued to the screen while watching this. So those are my thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2. I really enjoyed this film, and I had a blast getting to watch this in a movie theater. I feel like that was the way it was intended to be seen. I mean, it had really great tense action sequences. It really fleshed out this world that we had only been hinted at in the first film, and the acting was top notch. Because of that, I have to give A Quiet Place Part 2 a 9 out of 10. I want to thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'm curious, what were your thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2? Leave it out in the comments or reach out to us on our socials. I would be more than happy to talk about this and debate this with people that either had my same opinion or had differing opinions. But with that, I bid you good night and stay spooky, my friends.